Many nations around the world are running out of water, testing our capability for innovation like never before.
The Jordan River that marks the Israeli and Palestinian border with Jordan has been reduced to a trickle. This iconic river that nourished the growth of ancient civilizations has become little more than a glorified sewage canal.
The people who live in this watershed have been struggling for generations to live in peace. In the midst of ongoing conflicts, a small and unprecedented group of Israelis, Palestinians, and Jordanians is cooperating to try to solve shared water problems before the river runs dry.
Hey everyone, I'm Tyler. And this is my younger brother, Alex.
And together, we're the Water Brothers. We're going to take you on an adventure around the world to explore the state of our blue planet, a planet defined by water and its ability to sustain life.
So join us on our journey as we explore the world, looking at the most important water stories of our time.
And together, we will learn how to better protect our most precious resource.
The Middle East is at the forefront of a global water scarcity crisis.
Rapidly growing populations, unsustainable irrigation practices, and climate change are combining to create a looming disaster. Groundwater reserves have been drained, and entire lakes and rivers have dried up.
The Jordan River and its tributaries that flow over 250 kilometers through Lebanon, Syria, Israel, Jordan, and Palestine is one of the most threatened river systems in the world.
Not only is the river a vital source of fresh water in this arid region, but it's also the site of several world-changing historical events, from the baptism of Jesus Christ to the crossing of the Israelites into the Holy Land, and the burial site for several companions of the Prophet Muhammad.
Ancient empires have fought over these lands for thousands of years, and the region remains deeply impacted by wars and conflict. With nations still unable to cooperate and trust one another, it has been nearly impossible for any official agreement to be reached to address shared water issues and create a plan to save the Jordan River.
Right now, I'm standing in the upper Jordan River, just north of the Sea of Galilee. And many people might expect that this is what the entire Jordan River looks like. But sadly, once the river leaves the Sea of Galilee, it becomes a completely different river.
As the Jordan River enters the Sea of Galilee, about 50% of its flow is diverted by Israel for irrigation, with another 40% diverted by Syria and Jordan from the Yarmouk River, and 5% taken by Palestine. With almost no natural flow left in the lower Jordan River, the Dead Sea, into which it empties, has now lost over 1/3 of its original volume.
Despite its spiritual significance, the river's degradation has gone largely unnoticed because much of its course has been turned into a militarized border zone that is off limits to the public, out of sight and out of mind. However, there is one location on the lower Jordan where the public can access and see the river.
The spot I'm standing in right now is called Qasr al-Yahud, but most people would know it as the place where Jesus was baptized, and pilgrims come from around the world to be baptized here. But today the river is only 5% of its historic flow, a far different river than the one Jesus would have seen.
The organization EcoPeace Middle East is the only group that has succeeded in bringing together Israelis, Palestinians, and Jordanians to work on plans to save the river.
So to get our first introduction to the state of the river, we joined the organization's Palestinian director, Nader al-Khatib, during a water quality test at the baptism site in the West Bank.
In the 60s, it was totally different river. Why say the 60s? Because in the 60s, we started seeing diversion of the fresh water upstream from the river, from the Sea of Galilee, the Israelis, the Jordanians in the 70s, 80s, followed by the Syrians capturing the Yarmouk River. Then in the last 20 years also, the Middle East is badly affected by the climate change. So there are less rains, and all those reasons together have really caused the demise of the river. This is not the mighty Jordan River. Now you can walk, but in the past, it will be like impossible to walk, You will be drawn, you will be shifted by the currents.
The slow-moving, cloudy water barely separated the bathers and soldiers on the opposing banks of the river.
There is lots of things, polluted water coming to the river. And it comes from all kinds of sources. It comes from agricultural flow, it comes from sewage, it comes from diverted saline springs.
Do you think that most people that come here, most pilgrims that come here, know about the quality of the water that they're bathing in?
No, the people or the pilgrims, when they come, they are driven by the religious emotions. It's a dream for almost every Christian to be baptized. This is where, believed Jesus was baptized. So they jump, in the water. And we want to keep that right for them. But also we don't want these people to be affected, and suffer, from the consequences of being immersed in unhealthy water. Mm-hmm. Because according to European standards, this water is not suitable for swimming.
We're just leaving the baptism site right now. We're only steps from the river, and as soon as you come up here, you're just brought back to reality of the conflict that's going on. Because right now we are surrounded by a minefield. And it just shows you that the conflict going on here doesn't just hold the water hostage and the river hostage, it also holds holy sites like this hostage as well.
For 44 years, the baptism site at Qasr El Yahud was closed to tourists and was only reopened in 2010. Meanwhile, Israel built another baptism site further north, near the Sea of Galilee, that remains extremely popular for tourists and where we would meet with Gideon Bromberg, the Israeli director of EcoPeace Middle East.
So the spot we're in right now, we're surrounded by Jordan on one side, the Golan Heights, we're here in the Sea of Galilee and all the history here. This really should be a point in the world that brings people together, but I guess that's not the case.
It's not the case at the moment, no. Sadly, water has been an issue of great competition. And that really is the story behind the demise of the River Jordan. In the mindset of conflict, of warfare, every side tried to capture the water and keep it to itself. One, because of legitimate needs of needing water. We're in a desert part of the world and a lake like this is scarce. Water is scarce here. So everyone wants to grab water for themselves, but they also want to deny water to the enemy because water means power. And the River Jordan is the border.
Just a few kilometers south, the Jordan River is dammed, and only a small amount of fresh water is allowed to flow through a pipe that transforms the Jordan into a completely different river.
So quite amazingly, we've come to the new headwaters of the lower Jordan River.
Wow.
Instead of the fresh water flowing down, making its way down to the Dead Sea, the fresh water is dammed. And for the last 50 years, we've seen raw sewage. This is the raw sewage coming from all the communities around the Sea of Galilee.
This is the Jordan River. This is the lower Jordan, I guess.
This is the headwaters of the lower Jordan, quite tragically. So it's Israeli sewage here. Further down it becomes Jordanian sewage and Palestinian sewage and agricultural runoff and saline waters. Because once the value of the river was totally destroyed, it became an easy way to get rid of sewage and waste.
So how could it be allowed to get like this? I just can't wrap my head around it being such an important river to so many people.
It truly is. It's unimaginable. Particularly here in Israel, a world leader in water technologies, in water efficiency, where anywhere else in Israel, raw sewage is not flowing in rivers and streams anymore. It's all being captured and reused and treated for agriculture. In fact, 80% of the sewage in Israel is treated and reused for agriculture, and the next country that has leadership in the field is Spain, with only 16%. So Israel's way ahead. But the raw sewage flowing here speaks to the mindset of conflict.
A river considered holy by millions has become anything but holy.
Hundreds of wastewater streams empty into the Jordan River and Dead Sea from all sides of the border, including the Palestinian West Bank.
One wastewater stream we visited was flowing right through the heart of Bethlehem. The Palestinians have raised the funds to build a sewage treatment plant, but getting the approval to proceed has been very challenging.
This is the area where all the wastewater of Bethlehem, Beit Sahur, and the eastern slopes of Bethlehem ends up, where around 150,000 people are living. It looks like a river, but it is not. It is a wastewater dump polluting the whole area here because of what is called the Joint Water Committee that requires an approval from the Israeli Authority and the Palestinian Authority before setting up any water and wastewater project in the West Bank.
This bilateral government committee was set up in 1995 as part of peace negotiations to improve access to clean water and sanitation in the West Bank. In Bethlehem, there has been major disagreement on who will have ultimate control over the plant once it is built, and in deciding on which communities in the region will be allowed access to the treated water.
It seems that the relatively simple construction of a treatment plant has not proceeded due to complex political problems.
Both the Palestinians and the Israelis are losing because water is kept a hostage. How? The Palestinians do not have enough access to fresh water and to sanitation. The same, the Israelis, by denying Palestinian access to water or approving permits for sanitary projects, the sewage is infiltrating to the karstic aquifer, and pollution knows no border. And when we say 80% of the groundwater is consumed by Israelis, so any pollution is going to affect them, and it doesn't make sense.
Throughout the West Bank, on land occupied by Israel in the 1967 war, Israel has established over 120 settlements that are home to over 350,000 people. These settlements, that the United Nations considers illegal, are a major source of tension, and their establishment is widely viewed as a key roadblock to achieving peace in the region.
And to further complicate matters, these settlements have a vastly better level of access to basic services, such as sanitation and water for drinking and irrigation, than do their neighbors within the occupied lands.
For domestic consumption, the figures, I think it talks for itself. An average Palestinian consumption is about 70 liters per person per day, compared to around 300 liters per person per day inside Israel, and it's more than 800 liters per person in the settlements. And when you say average consumption 70 liters, the World Health Organization guidelines recommend 100 to 120 liters. And still have communities in Palestine have no running water. That means they have to buy water by tankers, which becomes more expensive. You have families who pay more than 10% of their income just to buy water.
We believe the settlements should be removed from the valley, and Palestinians should be able to develop their side of the Jordan Valley to bring prosperity to those Palestinian residents, but also to help bring peace to Israeli residents, because if we can both live in prosperity, then we can also live in peace.
On the opposite side of the river, the Jordanian director of EcoPeace Middle East took us to the King Abdullah Canal, a major diversion route for Jordan River water.
The agriculture economy depends on this canal, and all the farmland, they get the water from the canal. But like you hear in the background, there is a pump working, and those pumps, they take the water out of the canal illegally. And that is a big problem in Jordan, the unaccounted for water that is pumped through the networks, being domestic or even agriculture. Depending on the area, there is between 35 to 75% unaccounted for water in the networks.
Water theft is widespread across the country and rarely prosecuted by police. Yet, in some cases, Jordan simply has no choice but to overdraw local water supplies.
Now, there is something else that we need to talk about and keep remembering. that the pressure on the fresh water by the Syrian refugees, it's been impacting the water economy here in Jordan in a very, very negative way.
Since 2012, more than 610,000 Syrian refugees have settled in Jordan due to the ongoing civil war in Syria, increasing Jordan's population by nearly 10% in just a few years, putting incredible pressure on its already limited freshwater resources.
How urgent is the situation for the Jordan River? Is it going to disappear, perhaps?
Well, our studies showed that losing 98% of the water of the Jordan River, the consequences was losing about 50% of its biodiversity. So you can imagine, Alex, that the rest of the 50% is hanging on to this polluted water. But for how long? Maybe the river itself will not go dry because there's a lot of agriculture runoffs, saline water, sewage, raw sewage going to the river. It will never go dry. But it will be a dead river, a river without any resources. Even the water will not be good enough for irrigation for anybody. The whole country is named after the Jordan River. So how can I accept that my country is named after a devastated river, a polluted river? So the work on rehabilitation is really a must.
The best place to witness the most dramatic decrease in water levels is where the River Jordan drains into the Dead Sea.
Well, when they started operating a tour boat in 95, which was loading people from this platform up here onto the boat to take them further on over to Jordan, the sea was coming right up to there, up to the platform, because the platform was actually 2 meters higher back then.
So 20 years ago, we would have been completely underwater then?
Completely. It declines every year by 1 to 1.5 meters.
Lying over 420 meters below sea level and with no natural outlet, the Dead Sea is extremely salty and rich in minerals.
While the majority of the Dead Sea's decline is caused by less water flowing down the Jordan River, about 40% of the water losses are attributed to industrial activity on both the Jordanian and Israeli coasts that extract Dead Sea water, sediments, and salt to produce a variety of products from cosmetics to fertilizers.
As the water levels of the Dead Sea continue to fall, aquifers connected to the sea are also being depleted as well. And the most striking visual example of these losses can be seen here at one of the thousands of massive sinkholes that have formed that swallow up farmland, roads, and even people's homes.
As salt water is drained from aquifers connected to the falling Dead Sea, fresh water moves in and begins to dissolve the salty, cave-like structure left behind. If enough fresh water enters one of these drained aquifers, the salt structures weaken and eventually collapse.
Because scientists cannot predict exactly when or where sinkholes may open, all new development has been halted on the Israeli side of the Dead Sea, and similar considerations are being made in Jordan.
It's a serious issue for human and environmental safety. We lost a life of one Jordanian and this sinkholes. As you know, that the Dead Sea is a major touristic attraction, so it is also affecting the touristic potential of the country. As you know, Jordan has minimum resources and depends largely on tourism.
The destruction that remains is nature's reminder that you cannot significantly drain a watershed without serious consequences.
So we're at a spa on the Dead Sea right now, about to take our very first swim in the water.
But to get down there, we had to ride this tractor trailer down to the water because the water levels have fallen so much, they're over 1.5 kilometers away from the spa, and they used to be right on the banks there. Really gives you a good sense of how much the Dead Sea has changed.
The Dead Sea is the world's oldest natural spa, with both King Herod and Cleopatra, two of its earliest clientele.
It's so cool to think that we're floating at the lowest point on Earth right now.
And we're able to float like this because these waters are about 10 times as salty as the ocean, so they're extremely dense. And it's called the Dead Sea because almost nothing can survive in these waters except for a few tiny microbes. But it's kind of ironic to think that now the Dead Sea is actually dying as its water levels continue to fall every year.
Time is running out to save the Dead Sea and Jordan River. While the roadblocks to peace still seem difficult to overcome, some of the most promising solutions to saving this river system are being developed right here in Israel.
In addition to recycling almost every drop of wastewater, Israel has also pioneered the use of drip irrigation, which can reduce the amount of water needed to grow crops by over 50%.
Much of this efficiency is encouraged by simply charging people the true cost of treated water. On one visit to Ben Gurion University of the Negev, we saw fascinating new technologies being developed to use water multiple times on every farm. 1 unit of water can be used to grow algae for biofuels, fish, and flowers before being used to irrigate farmland.
As a last resort, Israel has turned to desalination to overcome remaining water shortages.
Today we are desalinating about 40% of our needs, of our water needs. It's expensive. We don't want to go into desalination unless we need it. And unfortunately for all of us, we will need more and more desalination around the world.
As we walked through the world's newest and largest desalination plant, we learned how the high energy demands of desalination are being overcome by developing new membranes that can filter out salt at half the cost of traditional systems. By 2050, Israel expects to supply over 70% of its drinking water through the desalination of Mediterranean seawater.
Desalination has transformed Israel's water economy. This new freshwater source has allowed Israel to begin to increase water flow into the Lower Jordan for the first time in decades.
New wastewater treatment plants are also being built on all sides of the border to stop the flow of raw sewage, starting with the sewage line that was running right beneath our feet.
Although this pipeline is a great precedent, and we think that we've actually changed the mindset, this river has value and therefore it's valuable enough that fresh water should flow here again, it's still not enough. And we don't think that the river should be fed from a pipeline. The River Jordan should see natural flow. We're not there yet, but the political will is now on the table. It's now an issue of public debate.
Since the creation of Israel, water became a major issue of conflict, and it created lots of tension, which also was part of the reasons for the 1967 war. So unilateral actions, every country was trying to capture as much as they can of the Jordan River basin water without recognizing the needs of their neighbors. The end result, nobody solved their water problem, but we destroyed our regional environment, and everybody today suffers because of that kind of mentality.
EcoPeace Middle East has played a vital role in the peace-building process by bringing together thousands of school children and groups of politicians from all sides of the border to take symbolic dips in the last remaining clean stretches, encouraging government action and cooperation.
So much of it was done by kids. So much of that leadership was done by school kids coming out and saying, it doesn't need to be this way. It can be totally different. We can bring the River Jordan back to life.
There is so much that we can all learn from the story of water in this part of the Middle East.
We've seen people working together on inspiring solutions and learned how Israel is a global leader in water management. But these innovations will not be able to restore the Jordan River or the Dead Sea unless they are shared and used by everyone in the region.
The good news is that the technologies already exist, and now it is only attitudes that must change, so that shared water problems can be solved in cooperation, rather than being sources of further conflict.
We were amazed by this place and hope that before the river runs dry, the people here embrace the goal of restoring their shared water resources and using them more wisely.
Join us and dive deeper into the episodes at thewaterbrothers.ca.